I call it the kind of the golden rule of reciprocity. If they want to send kids here, fine, but we get to send kids there. Same number. If they want to invest in our New York Stock Exchange or other exchanges, we get to be involved in their finances. If they want to be in our index funds, we get to be in their index funds. Right? So there should just be an absolute reciprocity across the board in terms of policy, and there's not. We've been trying to help them out. We were hopeful that their sons and daughters would become capitalist yuppies, and they haven't. Their party runs their government, their party runs their military, and the Americans don't know that the party runs everything. And it's 10 to 50 people that are just iron-fisted rulers of China.
Dave Bratt, great to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Thank you, Jan. Great to be here.
So, former Virginia congressman, now you're the dean of business school at Liberty.
Right.
That's, so of course we're going to have to talk about business.
Good.
Right. I actually, I remember an article by Amel, who's our White House correspondent, also our, one of our economics correspondents, did a piece with you about small business.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for you.
Yeah. I'll kind of morph back and forth between politics and small business. But the small business person across the whole U.S. has kind of gone over to the populist side with Trump because they know they don't have access to lobbyists up here in the swamp. And so they've all concluded that, President Trump is the leader to break up the swamp. And now you've got the same thing going on with Bernie on the left. And the media hasn't really identified that yet. It's two populist revolutions going on, both. I met Bernie 4 years ago at the White House and said, hey, you fighting against stuff like I am. Everything's bought and paid for up here. And he goes, yeah, Dave, what the hell you think's going on up here? Yeah, that's what's going on up here. And we just have radically different solutions, right? So he's got a socialist, 90 trillion solution. And we want, private property rights and the rule of law and markets at work and, following the best Nobel laureates in economics and what they would say to do. And so small business is just paralyzed. And then, they go and try to compete in our entrepreneurship center at Liberty with the students, kind of similar. They put a product up on Amazon, and it's just a matter of whether it gets stolen or not, right? And then replicated for cheaper with a cheaper labor source. And so you can either have an international set of norms for the U.S. and the West, or you can follow the Chinese communist norms that they're dictating now with their social media scores, not only on their own people, but on our businesses. They're keeping social credit scores on U.S. businesses. And if you don't behave, you don't get the supply chain with them.
Right. We saw that with the NBA. What could happen?
Yeah, that was amazing.
It was. Well, I thought that was really interesting because it was kind of a rude awakening.
Yes.
We're like, oh, this happens.
Right.
See, we know about this because, we were founded by Chinese Americans back in the day, specifically to expose what the Chinese Communist Party was doing.
Right.
So, they didn't like us very much. We had a low social credit score.
No, good. No, you've been heroic.
Yeah.
And that example was perfect because it showed, I think it was Charles Barkley that came in on the freedom side. And so anyone with a vested economic interest, and I won't name names because I like them too, but famous players, and anyone that had a Nike, brand or two, they couldn't say anything or wouldn't say anything.
Right.
And these are major Americans with hundreds of millions of dollars already in the bank, and they won't speak up on behalf of people who are suffering, which to me is just an atrocity. And then Barkley comes at Charles Barkley, who I love. He's big, retired, and a little more senior to some of these young guys. And he knows what matters in life because he's more mature, and he speaks up for the lowest of the low in the world. And the average American has no idea what's happening to the Uyghurs in Western China and the abuses, and then when China's going around on their Belt and Road to sub-Saharan African countries. I've talked to some of their leaders in some of the sub-Saharan African countries, and they say, you have no idea what China does to a country. Come meet with me a little bit, and I'll tell you. And so I'm glad what the Epoch Times is doing on that front.
Right. No, I mean, so this this is part of what we're doing, right?
This
is a lot of people have written to us, actually, our readers, our subscribers, saying, oh my goodness, I didn't know about this situation in China. My goodness, this is very serious.
Right.
So it's happening. I think there is this kind of greater awareness of these realities in America that I certainly didn't see 10 years ago.
No, that's right. And analytically, our people know better, right? So I make fun of Harvard, MBAs. These are the smartest people in the world, right? They're off the charts. And the first thing you learn in Finance 101 is, diversify, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, what have they all done? In search of the short-run dollar, they're vested like crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was on a show the other day, so what's the solution? What should Trump do? And I call it the kind of the golden rule of reciprocity. If they want to send kids here, fine. But we get to send kids there. Same number. If they want to invest in our New York Stock Exchange or other exchanges, we get to be involved in their finances. If they want to be in our index funds, we get to be in their index funds. Right? So there should just be an absolute reciprocity across the board in terms of policy, and there's not. We've been trying to help them out. We were hopeful that their sons and daughters would become capitalist yuppies, and they haven't. Their party runs their government. Their party runs their military. And the Americans don't know that the party runs everything. And it's 10 to 50 people that are just iron-fisted rulers of China.
Absolutely. So that, it's interesting. How much does this kind of reality, the economic realities of how the world changed over the last 30 years,
yes,
vis-a-vis, let's say, China being kind of the main player, how much does that figure into the curriculum that exists at Liberty?
Well, for the past year, I've been on our entire faculty, and we're bringing in speakers, and we have like Tom Cotton's been at the forefront in the Senate on some of these issues, and I'm following some of the thought leaders, including yourself, on this. But we're shifting as much. Part of it is just getting the students at the ripe age of 20 to want to read the newspapers. Right. So there's a lot of competing things when you're 20 years old.
We're actually trying to work on that here
a
little bit.
Good.
Yeah, let's see.
But that's the challenge,
out.
right? So it's intellectually they get it, and our kids are free market, and everybody gets the U.S. context, right? You had to first have the rule of law to have freedom. We fought against the Britain or whatever, and it's kind of ironic that you need the rule of law and property rights to ensure your freedoms. And so we get that domestically, but internationally we don't get it. So if you don't have international norms, and we had them after we set them up, right? Bretton Woods, the Bretton Woods Order, the World Bank, IMF, United Nations, all this, we funded that and set it up, and China was outside of that. And that world order prospered and lifted all boats for 50 years, and peace and capitalism was flourishing. But now there's a new 800-pound gorilla called China that doesn't follow that established order. They're trying to set up their own.
Right.
And I thought they were kind of contained to their own hemisphere. I always had that view for the past 20, and that's changed. I read Deceiving the Sky by Bill Gertz.
Right.
And
excellent book. Excellent
book.
And
China has documents, China 2025, China 2050, and they self-assert. We're at war. We're at economic war, cyber war. And that's what's coming your way.
Yeah, no, I know, and it's been. I've had Bill on the show to talk about the book, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is something that's just been happening for quite a long time. It's part of the strategy. Right. Just tell the Americans what they want to hear.
Yes.
And we'll just do our own thing. Thank you very much. Right.
And I heard an anecdote. I think it was a 2 or 3 star general a few weeks ago. And in 100 years, China has their celebration, their 100-year celebration, right? So
Yes.
2049.
Yeah.
Well, at that celebration, they want to celebrate also that they possess Taiwan.
Well, I think it's even bigger. I think it's an even grander vision than that.
Yeah.
It's just that they kind of are the dominant.
Right.
They're it's the China, but it's not the China. It's the Chinese Communist Party world order.
Yes.
That's China and China Communist Party, very different things. Right.
And then this general pointed out, so they want to celebrate their win, their victory. That will include owning Taiwan. And he said, you do the math on that. He said they've also calculated that Americans lose their memory after 15 years because of Tiananmen. So 15 years. So you do the math on that. 2050 take away 15. They have to have Taiwan by 2035. And if that doesn't wake you up in the middle of the night, you're not paying attention. And so we've got some aggression coming our way. They've copied all of our destroyers and carrier groups and technologies and airplanes. It's all been well documented, but the American people aren't aware of it yet.
So how is Liberty University helping in this? Tell me, or
Yeah.
how will it help? I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
No, that's no spot.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
we do. We got the Falkirk Center. We're standing up this year. President Jerry Falwell with Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk's just fantastic across American universities on establishing the right of free speech. That the fact that this has to be established at centers of the liberal learning, the liberal arts, is astounding in itself. So we're working on that project, but it's kind of faith and freedom. And those are the first principles that made this country great. And those are the principles we have to stand up in China on behalf of the Chinese people, who we all love. The Chinese people are being repressed. And so we go back to our founders and our first principles. You know, you got the First Amendment with freedom of speech and association and religion and the press and all that. And then two, you got guns. And I mean, you can't really make it up, right? Venezuela, you go around to any socialist experiment, they all, you know, following Marx, you know, well, just trust us in the short run. You know, this will take 20 or 30 years. Give us all your power, give us all your liberties, give us all your guns, and then we're going to establish nirvana for you. And then, you know, at some point in the future, the worker will be better off. Well, that promise has never come true. And so now the Marxists have gotten more clever, right, in they have theorists. And so instead of capitalist versus labor, now they have oppressed versus oppressor. And so so they've propped this up. That's the wars in the Democrat Party right now, right? But race and gender and sex and any group they can break you into. And so we're in a cultural war. And America has always been a nation under law. Every individual is protected by the law. It doesn't matter what group you're in. Right? If you're in a minority group, you should be absolutely protected. And as soon as you start breaking off into that crazy Marxist logic, you're gone. And you're on the road to Venezuela. And so that's what we're at Liberty. That's what we're working on: getting people back into the first principles, explaining why they matter, and we got to retain them. And the next generation has to fight for it. It's a fight. Rights, language, you have to fight for.
Well, wonderful place to end. Dave Bratt, such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.